Halo? Halo, no cześć, no. Jak tam to twoja wczoraj zmiana w sklepie? Dużo było zamówień? Mhm. No, rozumiem. No tak, no u mnie jak byłam przedwczoraj, to też sporo było. Parę było, no tak, adresów do wysyłki, no ale już wzięliśmy po prostu, już wszystko jest załatwione. This is my site of natural cosmetics, and you can see lots of great creams, great masks, and lots of cosmetics made from natural substances. If you want to take care of your skin, just write us a message and we will give you advice, and if there is a need, you can place an order.
I found out for myself that after some time, a person becomes simply helpless. At first, he broke the furniture next to me, smashed things, threw them against walls, threw them out of the window. I remember during one of the fights, he first threw me against the wall and then began to choke me. He left the room and locked the door, leaving me without food, drink, or access to a toilet for hours. Of course, he also took my phone and laptop from me, so I couldn't call for help. I decided to report the matter to the police. However, it was another trauma for me. When I was testifying, the police mocked me and said that it was my fault because I lived with him and was in a relationship. Since then, I have not told anyone about what I experienced during these almost 2 years of living together, and I still don't feel strong enough to talk about it. What has changed in me? For bad, of course, self-perception and my self-esteem. Sensitivity to the harm of others, for sure. I never judge because I know very well how difficult it is to leave the violent person, how difficult it is to change your life and free yourself from it. So I know that sometimes you just exist because it's hard to name a different life in constant fear.
How can I help? How can we as a society help domestic violence victims? And then I came up with an idea of online shop, which only pretends to be an online shop with cosmetics, but in fact, this is a site, a helpline for domestic violence victims. And the idea came as an inspiration of similar French project. People going to the pharmacy can ask about mask 19, and then the pharmacist knows that this is a code that this person is suffering from domestic violence. So my name is Krysia and I'm 19 years old student from Poland, Warsaw. I'm studying law. So it's not a personal decision because I don't want to be famous because I feel a little bit uncomfortable with it, and I feel a little bit uncomfortable with making all these videos, all these televisions, radios and so on, but I see a mission in doing it because every time I go to the television, I go to the radio and to newspaper, I'm talking about domestic violence. And it's not about the fact that I want to be famous because I don't want to, but of the fact that I think that this is an important topic and we should focus society's eyes on that topic. The Women's Rights Center is the biggest foundation in Poland, which is helping domestic violence victims and also violence to women. And I just thought that I need help because I just made a post for my friends, and then the idea came popular, and it was lots of shares and so on. So I was sure that I need help, and then I found Women's Rights Center. The chief, Urszula Nowakowska, said that it's possible to involve my project, and lots of psychologists get involved in my project, and they stay on duty.
I'm Hania, I'm 21 years old. I study law at Jagiellonian University, it's my third year, and I work as a volunteer in Rumianki Bratki initiative. I've been doing this since the beginning of this initiative, and I give women who contact us some basic legal advice. If you text us through Messenger, you don't contact with a cosmetician or anyone like that. You contact with someone who can help you if you're a domestic violence survivor. And instead of these cosmeticians, there are psychologists and lawyers working in our organization. So thanks to that, you can reach for help in more private, secret way. So the person that abuses you won't find out. We definitely had a problem in Poland, and I guess everywhere else too, with the shadow pandemic. So the increase of domestic violence during lockdown. I was shocked by the amount of people that contacted us, like how huge is this problem. And it's scary, and I think that it's still just a drop in the ocean. It is on every level of society, even on the political level. There are politicians who talk openly about domestic violence being a good thing. For example, the Minister of Education, Czarnek, said that domestic punishments are needed and that the lack of them leads to demoralization and chaos in general. Another politician, Janusz Korwin-Mikke, said that in a normal family, children should be afraid of the father, and that one of father's duty is to beat the children. Another level is social situation. This thought that domestic violence is something natural and private. By the way, even the president said that it's a private thing, and it is this conception that liquidation of violence is liquidation of a family. So it makes it really difficult for women who experience domestic violence to look for help, to tell someone, because they believe, and they're often right, that if they tell someone, they will be ignored and silenced. It definitely gives me hope that there are organizations, like non-profit organizations, that help women about domestic violence, abortion, everything, and we can really organize as a society, even if the political situation isn't dreamy.
Feminoteka has been a foundation for 16 years now, and we are feminists, and we did a lot of projects, but wherever we went and whatever we did, violence against women always popped up somewhere, and we realized how important it is, and also how unresearched and untouched basically that problem is, how little is done to support women, and it's really a huge part of women's life. My name is Katarzyna Nowakowska. I work in Feminoteka as a psychologist and psychotraumatologist, and I provide counseling for women who are survivors of violence. sexual violence and domestic violence. So domestic violence is any kind of violence that takes place within the family, within intimate, close relationships. And it can be psychological violence, it can be physical violence, it could be economic violence. There is, of course, sexual violence as well. It's very often where there is domestic violence, there is sexual violence as well. So any kind of violence that is perpetrated within intimate relationships or within a family is we can call domestic violence.
I believe that one of the biggest misconceptions about domestic violence is that it only happens to poor and uneducated people who have like too many children and no internet connection, while in fact it happens everywhere and to everyone, and it really doesn't matter if you're educated or what kind of job you have, it can still happen to you.
In my private life, I had experience of domestic violence as well. So I thought it was very important to just deal with the problem and educate myself, and this was always present. Actually, what I find most frustrating is when these women go to the police, the courts, they report it, they're brave, they put it really takes huge amount of courage and strength to report it and to do something about it. And they go there and it all comes to nothing. So I don't have the comfort of knowledge that, you know, whenever I inform the woman about her rights and support her through the process, that she won't be victimized again by the court or by the prosecutor or by the police, or it's just it's immensely frustrating.
It's socially important to help domestic violence victims, but it's really hard and also emotional. It's really hard for me personally. I have to take psychotherapy, which is okay because sometimes we need it, but it is emotionally hard for me. so that is the consequence.
I would say that there are two big challenges in doing this work in Rumianki i Bratki. Firstly, it's just the feeling of being overwhelmed with these stories all the time, even if you don't work currently, if you're not on a shift, you still think about it constantly, and all these stories just mix up in your head and they're always with you. And secondly, it's just the responsibility that if you give a bad advice, you can really hurt someone. Considering that every week 3 women in Poland die because of domestic violence, it is often, it is always difficult when they just stop answering.
I actually became a feminist because of a poster. There was it was, I think, 1993. There was a poster with a big eye on it and said, "Women, watch your rights." And I thought, oh, this is great. I think I'm going to just go there and talk to them and see if I can help and participate in it. And that's really how it all began.
For me, feminist is the biggest part in that I know that if I'm a feminist and I would get violated, I experience any violence, I will not have this problem that it was my fault. I did something wrong, I provoked it, or anything like that. I know I was taken advantage because I'm a woman. and nobody had a right to that. So my name is Magdalena Nowacka. I'm a sexologist, psychologist, therapist, sex educator, anti-discrimination trainer, academic teacher, and I started my work at Women's Rights Center when I was working with women who experienced violence, especially sexual violence. And I also work with transgender youth at Stowarzyszenie Tolerado. And my main interest is human rights, but especially gender and everything connected to gender. I am an activist because activist is someone who is being active. Everything I do, no matter if it's a volunteer job or it's a paid job, I do because of my values. I could not do anything that is against my values, and my main value is to provide positive impact on society in the human rights mainly. Activism is a hard work, and I think most of the activists had a burnout in one moment or 2 moments or many moments. But for me it's impossible to stay passive. Some activists can say that the biggest challenges is that's what's happening on the street, for example protests, but I don't think so. I think I really get this huge social energy from protests. It's something that there are so many people around me that want change, and they are doing something. Like getting into that street is doing something, and it's more than I can ask for. The biggest burnout is inside organizations. It's when you are sitting in a room with a person that experienced trauma, and I can do anything just to not focus on that, get a distance, but it's impossible. I'm recording every memory they get, every memory they're telling to me. I also feel the exhaustion and helplessness when a country is not helping them, when government is doing I don't care, when law is not working how it should work. And I think that moment, that helplessness from people that experience violence really comes to me second-handedly. And I think that was the hardest moment for me, when I could not cry anymore.
So the Istanbul Convention it's an international convention which supports mostly women's rights, but also children's rights, and also rights or people suffering mostly from domestic violence. And this convention, it's not helping in the direct way, because there are no law sentences that said the country must do this and this and this and this, because it's only a convention. But in general thoughts, it's mostly like a path to being a good country, and it's a path to take care of these which are suffering from domestic violence.
If we leave the convention, I think that it will be tragic, not only because of the law that allows you to separate the man who uses violence from the women who experiences this violence, but leaving the convention will also be a strong signal sent to society that domestic violence is acceptable and that you can do almost anything without being punished for that.
It would be like going back to 89, I guess. So we will have no law reinforcement, we will have no grants and funds for our organizations that are tackling violence against women. There would be, we will be the last on the list to get the money for the help. And there will be no workshops for women because it's not a problem. So I think it would be a huge step back for us, and that's what would happen even if it's only for a few years.
Because of the political changes, we get very little funding from state sources or official sources also from the EU, because all the money that comes from the EU, I mean not all of it, but vast majority of it is distributed via ministries, and we're not seeing any of it. No human rights organizations, no women's organizations get funded.
Okay, so this is our office in Gdańsk, and here we have the place when we are meeting with women who experience violence and give them law and psychological support. In 2017, Ministry of Justice took our grants because they said that we are discriminating men. So we have to go on our own way right now. So we are like making projects and asking for grants from the city, from European Union and so on. And from that money, we can support women that without a fee, so they don't pay us for our help. But there was time when we had no money, so everybody working here was really a volunteer, and everything was pro bono only.
There is this conception that places and organizations like ours destroy families, that our real aim is to destroy marriages, to make people divorce, and one of the biggest values for our government is traditional family, but not really the well-being of this family, just the existence of it.
That's why people in Poland don't like us, because they said that this our only aim is to get women divorced. It's quite right for most of the time. The best solution when you are in a violent relationship, toxic relationship, is just to not be in that relationship, really. And we are also lobbying about domestic violence. Here in Poland, it's still a topic that people don't want to talk about. It's a taboo. It's a problem that is domestic, so it should stay in four walls. It's a private thing, not to talk about in public.
Well, there are reactions in some right-wing press. We did have a bomb threat. I mean, it was just a threat, but we needed to bring in the police with dogs to check everything, because as you can see, we are in the office is in an apartment block. So there's a residential. It's a residential building. A lot of people here. Some people just dismiss it. Well, I think it's universal, you know, what they say about feminists and whatever, but it just doesn't bother me. You know, it has no bearing on me, because I know what my values are and why I do what I do.
Yes, so about the police, it was really a surprise. So as you know, in 2017, Ministry of Justice cancelled us from the list of organizations that can be supported by government. And then in 2018, it was one day, as any other day, our friend was working in the office. It was her first day of work. And police came in and took all our laptops and took our documents, and we have really sensitive documents because they're all the informations about our clients. We do not give them to anybody. So they took our laptops and searched if we are doing anything that could be interesting for them. And still we have sometimes in news there comes up information that how much money we are getting, that we are doing some laundry money. So it was all around that maybe we are doing something nasty and unlawful with money that we get. And they gave us back our laptops, but from that time on we have always a backup somewhere here, and we are really sensitive. So it happens from time to time still.
I think that the first and most important step to create a better safe space for women is education. And also with education, we can change not only the behaviors of the victims, but also the behavior of potential abusers, because we can teach them how to interact with people, how to deal with emotions, how to deal with their needs of control, and talking about domestic violence everywhere where possible.
I mean, on an individual level, what you can do when you know somebody who is in a violent relationship is be patient, believe them. That's the main thing. Just when somebody tells you that they experience violence, you know, they are telling the truth. You know, what would be the point of doing otherwise? So it's very important to believe those people and to let them know that there's nothing wrong with them. There's something wrong with the situation they are in.
It's not a private thing. If someone is suffering, it's not a private thing. If someone is suffering, we should help this person which is suffering. And our reaction can save lives. And it's, maybe I will repeat it, your reaction can save lives.
Spreading the idea is not a lot, really. It's not the best things we can do, but it's better than doing nothing. And maybe it will become a wave, maybe it will become a tsunami. I believe that Poland is right now on the edge of changing the politics drastically. We are like, you know, a spring that we are really tight right now. The government was like putting us down for a lot of years right now, and I'm just waiting when the spring comes out.
I don't remember many of the stories that I've been told in the first 2 months, but later I started keeping them in my head, and they keep coming back. So that also changed, that I didn't become stronger or anything like I could suspect, but actually otherwise it's, I would say, harder than it was in the beginning.